Hello and welcome back to the HYMO track guide series. This week's 25-minute races at LFM are at Zolder. We're gonna focus on that track here today. Focus mainly on the two chicanes at Zolder that are always challenging and make or break your lap here on this track. For 45-minute races at LFM this week we have NURBURGRING. If you're interested in that, we have very nice and detailed track guide for that. Check out the card above or link in the description. But here today we're gonna focus on Zolder. For this week we have updated quite a few setups for Zolder, and we have included a new Mustang GT3 with the setups for this track. So check it out in the description below, all the links are there. But without further ado, let's get into it and let's talk in detail about Zolder. Okay, first corner. Coming into turn 1, you can use the bridge up of the track as your reference for braking. As you're approaching it, when you are around 50 to 70 meters before it, stomp on the brakes hard and be as close to the wall on the right hand side, but just don't touch it. You can already see from here little sausages on the inside of turn 1. That's gonna be where your apex is gonna be. Point the car already at the apex and start trail braking towards it. Already from the apex, go hard on the throttle and accelerate all the way toward the outside. Track is really wide, so you can go on the throttle quite early and run the car wide all the way to the curb and take all the curb possible. Just don't touch the ground. Clean exit out of here and transition straight away to the left hand side of the track to open up turn 2. You can see here the track starts kinking towards the right. Just before it, go on the brakes, point the car at the apex on the inside and trail brake towards it. You're gonna be on the throttle here quite early. Already as you're hitting the apex, you're slowly starting to accelerate. The track widens up again on the exit quite a lot. Use all of the track at the exit. You're already accelerating. You're gonna have here a short section where you're just flat accelerating. Try to bring as much speed there as possible, accelerating as early as possible. Run the car to the curb, touch it a little bit, but then come off it as early as possible and scrap as little speed as you can through the next right-hander. Now the fastest corner on the track. For reference, on the left you can see that a little exit road and also where the rubber starts. Around there you'll use that as your braking point. Just as that exit road ends, go on the brakes and again straight away point the car at the apex. Trail brake initially and make sure the car is stable. Throw the car at the inside and try to cut a little bit of curb. There are little sausages markers on the inside of the curb that's gonna help you as a reference to where you're gonna apex the corner. You're here again very early on the throttle. You want to maximize the speed you're gonna carry out of here. Just be careful, there's the gravel on the outside, we don't want to touch it. You want to carry the speed through here in such way that throughout the whole exit you're on the edge of grip and you run the car wide to the edge of the curb and use all the curb, but do not touch the gravel. Now here comes the tricky part, the two chicanes in the middle sector that really make or break your laps at Zolder. For the first chicane there's gonna be a few different approaches you can take. Some lines that certain cars can take, there's gonna be some lines that certain cars just cannot take. Some cars are gonna be taking over only the first part of the curb. Some cars are gonna be cutting both the first but also the second curb. I'll show you a few examples. Here in the Porsche, I'm cutting the first part of the curb and then maximizing the acceleration I get out of the chicane, because I am not able to cut the second part of the chicane consistently. The car then jumps too much, it cannot really land. I'm not able to gain any time by cutting the second part of the chicane. So I cut the first part and then straight line the second part of the chicane without cutting it, avoiding the curb. Some other cars like the Ferrari, they are throwing the car over both of the curbs. They're carrying a bit more speed on the entry. They're going for a wider line. It doesn't have as much exit speed because it wasn't able to accelerate as early as the Porsche, but throughout the entire section it just carries its speed and produces time in a different way in a different part of the corner. The approach is gonna be determined by your car, your setup, and what you feel more comfortable with overall. So let's talk about those two approaches. How do you do that? Approaching to the corner, you can see a 100-meter board. You can also see that lamp pillar and also where the rubber starts. You can use those as reference to where you're gonna be braking. Just as I'm almost level with that lamppost and as I'm passing through it, just before it I already stomp on the brakes and decelerate the car all the way to the second gear. A car length or two before red and white barrier on the right ends, I start trail braking and pointing the car at the first apex, at that first curb. You want to get your deceleration done before you're gonna hit the curb, because then we're gonna use the throttle to help the car climb that curb. I'm pointing the car at the curb in a way that I'm gonna be cutting it with the majority of the left side of the car, but then the right wheels are gonna go just around it. So the right wheels are not gonna be really jumping. The front of the car, majority of the impact is gonna be taken by the left front tire. The right is gonna actually go just around the outside. I'm going already heavily on the throttle. I stomp on it to aggressively unload the front of the car. That makes the car squat. It helps with that car movement to help the car climb the curve. No matter the approach, the point of the chicane is always to carry as much speed throughout the whole section. So here I'm just trying to maximize the amount of speed I can carry through that first part without then getting a bounce on the second curve. Now for the second approach. Let's go on board with George in the Ferrari. He's gonna be carrying more speed through the first part of the chicane. He's braking later than me in the Porsche. He's going almost all the way past that lamppost and he's only braking past there. The first part is gonna be all the same. It's just that the position at which the car is gonna land is gonna be different. You have to land just as so. So your right hand side tires will be within the track limits on the left hand side of that second curb. And then you need to ensure that as the car lands and you point it for the second curb, you will have a split second to straighten the car out and make sure that when you're cutting the second part, your car is as straight as possible. If the car is gonna be there with the rear end especially being through any sort of lateral load, it will most likely then rebound in a weird way and throw into a spin. You need to make sure that the car is gonna be straight, because the rear is gonna get here a big bounce as it's going over it. And you need to make sure that the car is gonna land in a straight line. You can see that obviously it's not being able to accelerate and gain momentum as fast as I was able to do that in the Porsche throughout the section in just different parts of the corner. Now, time for the second chicane. One where it's a lot easier to cut the curves, but then the first ones can still catch you off guard and it's easy to go over the track limits there. So what line you should aim for to maximize it. For braking, it's gonna be tough here to take any sort of reference to get your braking point perfect every single time. You're really gonna have to learn by feel where to brake. You can sort of use the rubber on the road as a reference, but obviously remember that that rubber, depending on the track status, can change a little bit. But for majority of the times when the track is rubbered in and it's not raining, you can use that rubber on the road as your braking reference, and just as it starts, go on the brakes. For the track limits here, the red and white curb are gonna be the limit here. So you can cut quite a bit of those curbs, go even over those sausages easily, but you have to ensure that your outside tires are always on the white and red curb. Go into the first right hand part very early and aim to cut quite a big chunk of it. Now here watch out, because throughout the first part you're going through quite a big bump. So you're trail braking all the way to the apex, and then just as you're going over the bump, you're gonna have to start already straightening out the car. So you have to ensure that as you're going through the bump and over that bump, your car is straight, again not to get any weird rebound on the exit that could throw you into a spin. Throttle out of the first part for stability, and then again back off the throttle and get the front end into the second part. You can again cut the same amount, so the outside tires have to be on the red and white curb. For reference here, you can sort of use the gravel on the outside here where it ends, and when it connects with the curb, you can kind of aim to have your left wheels pointed at that point. So cut the first thing as much as possible, cut the second thing as much as possible. Again, off throttle, point the car at the curb, run it just around the sausages. You can here accelerate a bit earlier than you actually think. There's a lot of curb on the outside you can use all of it, and that will also open up that little right kink that is flat and just make it easier, so you're scrubbing as little speed as possible through here. Also, you can use ever so slightly of that curb on the inside, again to just scrub as little speed through the whole thing as possible. Into the hairpin, brake right at the 100 meter board. trail brake all the way towards the apex, try to carry high speed deep into the corner. But again, you can accelerate ever so slightly earlier than you expect. There's a curb on the outside, and then past the curb there's also a little bit of concrete. Use all of that, but then you have to come back straight away to the track because it ends and there's a grass. You don't want to go over that grass, as that's gonna hurt your acceleration and the momentum gain you're having throughout that acceleration zone. Line of least resistance to the last chicane, and for reference for braking you're gonna use again the bridge, 100 meter board and another lamppost. Just past the 100 meter board, and as you're almost passing that lamppost, go hard on the brakes and look for the apex that again you can easily spot by the red sausages on the inside of the corner. Point the car at those sausages, trail brake all the way towards them, and cut as much as possible of those sausages with your left wheels. On the throttle straight away, transition and then again off the throttle. Point the car at the next curb, and here drive around the outside of those sausages as you're already accelerating, so you don't want to unsettle the rear of the car. You're gonna be going on the throttle here quite early already and running the car wide. You can even use a bit of the grass at the exit, as long as it's not engaging the TC quite much. I think here in this instance, for example, even that big run over the grass doesn't actually engage any TC, so you can use it. That will just enable you to accelerate as early as possible out of the corner. Just remember, for race maybe it's easy to get a puncture or at least a pressure loss there. And that's a lap of Zolder. Like I said at the beginning, I think if you can just learn a consistent line and get confidence through those chicanes, the rest of the track has a really great flow and it's actually really enjoyable to drive on, as long as you have the car underneath you to take those chicanes with confidence and consistency. Thank you for watching. I hope you found the guide interesting and useful. Give it a like, subscribe to get notified about track guides in upcoming weeks, and see you there.